What if all the ways that we've described energy, vibes, feelings, psychic gifts, spirituality, what if all of those branches, those topics, were just words to describe things that were going on inside of our mind, collectively and individually? Together and individually and singular. If you can hear me, that plane is very loud. Sorry. Hold on one second. I have recently come to a realization that the epicenter of where we can control our energy output to other people and the energy input from other people to us, right? Or the projection of energy to us, right? Is all in here. And when I say in here, I'm literally speaking, very literally, I'm speaking about neurons. I'm speaking about our cells. I'm speaking about, yes, we could call them our thoughts, but it's deeper than that. It's more specific than that. It's more micro than that. I'm literally talking about our cells in our brain, our neurons. The neurons produce thoughts, yes, and we can, in my mind, in my opinion, see from the inside out what's going on inside of our brain, because we get thoughts that pop up, because we get internal language that pops up. But it's not the thoughts themselves that we're controlling. It's literally the electricity that's running through our neurons. It's literally, yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, like, if you don't know what I'm talking about right now, I would suggest, I don't know exactly the words and the sciences that have done research on this to put it, but I'm thinking of like mushroom therapy and not exactly the therapy itself, but like people talk about the neurons and their connections between each other, to other neurons in our brain, and how, based on the type of, how fast the electricity moves through the neurons, based on the type, I can't really say type of electricity, but like the frequency is what I'm trying to get at. How fast, how frequent the electricity moves into certain types of neurons in our brain, it will dictate our thoughts and it will dictate our actions as like a sequential thought to action, electricity to neuron, and then neuron to thought, and then thought to action, et cetera, et cetera. And then it kind of molds a whole persona that we have. But it's all based off of the starting up here. It's based off of the electricity up here. There are so many things that I want to speak about when it comes to this knowledge base, this awareness. Because I knew that we had neurons and I knew that electricity moved through them and like everything happened, but I just became aware of how many, I'm about to lose it and just start swearing because I'm getting so frustrated with I can't find the words to describe this. How much unexplainable shit goes on in our day-to-day lives that can be traced back to and explained, in my opinion anyway, by the electricity that moves through our neurons. And I'm not just talking about the singular, I'm also talking about our day-to-day relationships. Why, for one example, why you can walk into a room and you can feel a vibe, right? Why in some cases with people who are very, could call themselves psychic, right? Why they can pick up on things that not other people can't. Why it's accurate. Why it's seemingly very synchronistic. Why you can be in like talking to somebody and you guys have the same thoughts about things and it just keeps going. Why you're literally finishing each other's sentences. Why you're thinking of the same song at the same time. It all comes back to the electricity in our neurons. The ability, so we all have our own neurons, right? We all have our own brain, right? We are able to step outside of our brain with like electrical currents, right? And pick up on other people's brain electro stuff going on because of our mirror neurons. Now, these are specific neurons that we have in our brain, and in research that has actually been researched in time, they've been seen to be the reason that we can experience empathy, that we can experience pain in another's body, even if we do not have any of that pain going on in our body. It could be a mental, emotional, physical pain. Why we can know that somebody is sad, even if they haven't verbally told us. Why we can, again, in my opinion, I mean, there's a couple more steps to this, but like why we can literally be on that same wavelength with people, pick up on each other's thoughts, finish each other's sentences. I think it all starts with mirror neurons. Now, the sequential order in which happens after we, tune into our mirror neurons and like connect with somebody else's mirror neurons. What I think happens is there's an electronic pulse that goes in our own body to our mirror neurons. Our mirror neurons activate. We pick up on the person's... I'm trying to find an example because I can tell my mouth is literally getting dry and tangled, and I feel like I'm going to mess up this example. Like a game of telephone. It's like that's how electricity goes. It starts here, moves there, moves there, moves there in sequential order. It starts in our own cells in our brain that are not mirror neurons. I'm going to go slower now so I can actually get it out. It goes, when we're interacting with somebody, it innately goes straight. The electrical pulse goes straight to our mirror neurons. Our mirror neurons inside of our cells activate. And then those mirror neurons, this is where it gets a little bit can you back this up with science? I don't know, but I would love to see if we can. Or I'd love to see what science says if it's not this, right? I think that in the same way electricity has a magnetism to it, right? I think that in order to bridge this physical singular vessel that we have here, those mirror neurons turn on a certain thing that they're innately made to do. They flip on a switch and they release a magnetic pulse that is also made up out of electricity to whatever we're looking at, to across, looking at the animal, looking at the tree, looking at the person. It could be anything. Looking at that plastic dish in front of us, it could be anything, right? And it makes a connection. Now, obviously, if it's a plastic dish or another animal that doesn't necessarily have a brain, like a mammal or another human, or another mammal, because we are mammals, I think the reaction that mirror neuron causes is going to be different. Like what happens here after it sends out that magnetic signal or that connection. It's like that seeking out to be connected. So after it sends out that signal to connect, that's where stuff can get different, and we can go into a whole sling of topics of what happens in each particular situation, but I'm just going to use human to human right now. We meet another human, signal sends out. There, and because we're also human, and this is also our, the other person's way of going about things, their innate body structure, right? They're also simultaneously sending a signal of connection out to you. Now, their signal might not as, I'm gonna slow down. Their signal might not be as strong as your signal, or as fast as your signal, even by half a light speed millisecond, right? It depends on each person, but that signal is still sent out regardless, because there is a mirror neuron to send it out. There is a horsefly that I'm going to move away from. Oh, okay. And so once that happens, that's when we open this, it's like a gate opens up. This gate is a doorway to unexplained nonverbal communication. You could call it telepathy. I'm going to be so for real. I'm going to put it out there. This might be, this whole sequence, this whole formula, right, might be, or this chemistry, right, might be what we call telepathy when we don't know how to explain it, or like when weird shit happens and they're like, that must just be telepathy, right? We basically tune into multiple parts of the brain that are not conscious enough in our frontal cortex enough, or aware in other ways in other parts of our brain enough to be like, oh yeah, we know this is happening. It's all very subconscious, right? This is how, I think this is where like intuition kind of lies, where intuition or a gut feeling or instinctual feelings, they're very subconscious, they're very immediate, they're very automatic. And I think where we get this information to formulate an intuitive reaction, or a gut reaction, or instinctual reaction, like, hey, a fight-flight system, like, you know what I mean? I think we get it from this kind of connecting formula, and this gateway that opens up once those connections are made. And this gateway that I'm thinking of, it's like the connection's made, the gate opens, and you basically see into somebody else's brain. And they see into your brain and everything that's going on. You become a connective network between the two of each other. And I don't want to scare anybody, because I don't think that this is very conscious. Like, as humans, what we know about ourselves right now, mass research that we have right now, I don't know that we have any necessary control over this. I think we can control it. We definitely can control it once we're aware of it and we figure out how to control it. But I think right now, because we've either forgotten how to communicate non-verbally like this, because we're so used to using this, right, or etc., like, we have to get used to this. So I do think that how far somebody goes into your brain, how far like their electricity goes and merges with your neurons, can be very, it can go very deep, because I don't know if there are actual boundaries that we have put up, which is not a bad thing. It's just a neutral, it's an observation, really. And basically, like, what I mean by like they go into your brain, or our brains, like, you know what I mean? It's basically like electricity, in my mind, it doesn't really stop. It never stops. It cannot be created or destroyed. So once that connection is bridged, and that mirror neuron is like a doorway in, that electricity keeps going. You know, it just keeps spreading out, and until it's stopped by a certain something. And I feel like, I don't know how you would stop that. You can't really even see it. But I do think that what happens during this, time when, this electricity, their electricity is traveling through your brain, your electricity is traveling through their brain, right? This is when social interaction happens. That's when you are talking, you're sharing information about, how it looks like to the visible eye, to our senses, our conscious senses, is talking or sharing glances, to very to people who are more tuned into this subconscious part of our brain, it can feel like I'm picking up a vibe from you. You're picking up a vibe from me. You can feel it in the air. That's what I'm kind of feeling, because it's like everything happens up here. Everything happens from here. If we sense a shift in our air, in our environment, it's because our proprioceptors, which are also part of our central nervous system, they're just in our physical body, in our skin and stuff like that. It's because those nerves link to our neurons in our brain and are telling us there's a shift in the air around us, right? So tell me why, when you're talking with somebody, sometimes you can feel a shift in the air, in the atmosphere, quote unquote, even though there's not a earthly planetary shift in the atmosphere. And it's because their electricity is going into your brain. It's basically merging with everything else that's already going on with your brain. It's not really like we're taking over somebody's brain and you're becoming like the other person and vice versa. I do think that happens the longer you spend time around people, right? Because, it's kind of like mixing water with a different type of water. It's like eventually it'll dilute and it'll become like an even split, right? And I think that that's kind of what happens. It's just via electricity and via information, and like unspoken subconscious data being exchanged between the two people. That's kind of where I feel like you gotta pick the people you want to be around, because eventually, unconsciously or without your control, you do become somewhat like them. Now, I really do want to get into like how, like, control and like what that means, because I do think you can control it, but I do think it starts with awareness. We'll get into that later. But for right now, in this era of our humanity, we don't have awareness of this. So yeah, you will start to become like the other person because of this beautiful merging and unconscious communication. There are wasps all over me, so if I'm like looking and jumping and shit, that's where it's coming from. Trying to think if there was anything else I wanted to talk about here when it comes to this gateway and this like opening. Some people have more awareness of this electricity going through their brain than others. And I know that sounds really weird. Obviously, we don't feel electricity running through our brains. Some people do. Actually, I can't say that, because some people do experience social interactions like that. And I've literally heard people explain it like that. And for whatever reason, it comes up like that. Some people say it's very uncomfortable. You know what I mean? But what I was kind of getting from this, or what I was trying to say really, is say you're in a conversation with somebody and it feels like you're talking to a wall. It feels like they can't hear you correctly. It feels like you're not being understood no matter how much you speak. It's like something is not getting in, or there is like a dissonance per se, a language barrier, but it's not in actual verbal language. It's in body language. It's in energy exchange. It's like a vibe. It's like you just don't vibe with them. That, I feel, could be maybe two things. It could be two things. Either your electricity is merging with theirs, right? And whatever reason, like your life experience and your data that you have going on here already is literally a dissonant, it gives a dissonant chemical reaction to their data. Like you just don't vibe, right? Or the person is not aware, like literally not aware of this electrical exchange going on. So let's say somebody has a very hard time tuning into their subconscious. They're very much so more into their frontal cortex of their body. They're very more like what they can see in the physical, and et cetera, et cetera. all the five senses, and that's really where they cut it. That's where their electricity, that's what their brain lets them see. Let's just put it that way. So let's say your electricity is going into their brain and is seeing other different things, and you're aware of this because you, for whatever reason as a person, have more awareness of this. And I'm honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I'm just going off a whim here and saying that people who are said to be empathic, highly sensitive, people who are said to be psychic, or find that they go through that journey in life as a psychic, I feel like those types of people, maybe artists even, have this innate ability to follow the electricity consciously, deeper than other people, if that makes sense. That they're able to know and see what's going on. Like they're able to read a room better. They're able to feel and hold other people's emotions longer, for longer periods of time, and to a larger degree than other people who, say don't have that innate ability. And I think it really is, it comes down to like this, how far can you follow the electricity? How deep can you go into this person's brain? How deep can you go into this gateway? And so let's say you're with somebody who you can't consciously go that deep. It doesn't mean their electricity isn't going deep into your brain. It's still doing that. It still is very much so doing that. It's just, I feel that there is this there is a middle ground bridge that allows like whatever we're working with on a subconscious level to be brought into the conscious conversation, right? And I know that sounds like honestly, I hope people understand what I mean by that. It's like we could do all of this talking, this subconscious talking and conversationalizing, right? And not understand or hear anything that's like going on. I think a lot of this, like for an example, you could go to a mall and be around a huge group of humans and like you'd be just mindlessly doing your thing, doing your business. You do not perceive how much electricity is being exchanged in the room that you're in or in the environment you're in. Now, some people are very aware of that, and it is very draining mentally for people to be in places like that, maybe because they're so aware of all the electricity that's being exchanged, and they're consciously following the electricity. So they're consciously being able to see people's, like, it could be how do I describe this? In their five senses, sight, sound, everything, right? They're able to pick up on that, and it's put into their senses. So they're able to either see visually or in a mental image of like people's emotions, information that they don't even know why they know or how they know it, but they're able to see it, right? Some people have a heightened sense of hearing. I do think there is a thing about selective hearing. I think it comes with the electricity, like where you go, how much you're connecting to somebody, right? Let's say you're connecting to a lot of people. Maybe you can genuinely, your hearing is heightened to hear that, because again, hearing is based off of actual physical, stuff in our actual flesh and body, but it's also controlled by our temporal lobe, and that's part of our brain. And so I'm sure that the electricity being like more apt there and bringing it to the conscious realm, you know what I mean, a little bit more, is going to cause like et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, and it caused like you to pick up on it in a more way. I'm describing so many different types of situations here that could be definitely broken up and delved into in like multiple segments of whatever this is. But I'm so excited about this. Like, I feel like I've been able to understand the world in such a simpler way, but also in, how do I describe this? It's a simple thought process in my mind. It's a simple formula in my mind, but it explains so much, and that's why it's so vast. It's like I'm seeing patterns and how all of these things relate to each other, like just on and on. It just keeps going and going. It all comes back to the neurons and stuff like that. But coming back to this like bridge that I was talking about, I think there is a fundamental point where we are able to take whatever we're perceiving from the subconscious to the conscious, so we can verbalize it with people in a conversation. So we are able to, if it's not verbalized, we can pick up on it in our head, right? We are able to be consciously aware, oh, hey, this person is making me feel this way, or this environment is making me feel this way, right? It's our brain communicating with our brain. Now, sometimes we do verbalize that in a conversation with people, right? That's what a conversation is. But there's a lot more internal conversation and internal processes that go into it. Like even hearing somebody louder or hearing an environment louder than you would is a version of bringing that subconscious information to the conscious realm. It can appear in any of the five senses, or physical expression, right? So some people might have the capacity to do that, like a battery, like they might have the capacity to do that for a set amount of time, right? Social battery, right? Some people might have a bigger social battery, so they're able to be in these environments with a lot more communication and like stuff going on, and like they're able to hold it in their conscious mind a lot better. And then some people don't have a very large battery, and again, there's no right or wrong to this. This is all neutral and it's all very theoretical, right? So nobody is worse or better, but some people don't have as much capacity to hold what's coming from the subconscious and bringing it up here. They don't have the ability to hold it there, or they just don't have the ability to perceive it, for an extended period of time. And I think that a lot of this is also coming from like my personal experience in like observing myself, because I know when I get into these states, when my capacity lowers, my brain doesn't shut off the electrical current. I still am very much so in that world and doing that innate instinctual thing as an animal, but I literally just turn off my ears, my internal ears to it. I literally have selective hearing. I have selective stuff. And it's like the brain rations things for us to be able to digest, so we can continue moving, we can continue eating, we do not get overwhelmed or overstimulated. It basically balances everything out in a what is that, homeostasis type of way, so we can survive, right? And so sometimes, I think that sometimes, and every person's homeostasis is going to be a little bit different. What balances them is not, you know what I mean? So like you might come and talk to somebody and you might be able to see all these different things and pick up on all these different things, but they might not see any of that, or feel any of that. It doesn't necessarily make it less true, because again, electricity moving, like that electricity is moving. It's just, it's like how it presents itself, expresses itself in the 5 3D sensed world, conscious world, is gonna differ. And that was a whole long ass explanation on that. But there is a bridge, there is a conduit that brings it. That's what I want people to take away from it. There's a bridge and there's a conduit that, brings it to the conscious. Now, how people can hold that, up to them. So that's it for that. And the last thing I want to get into with this whole thing is this control, this of our awareness of, that I was talking about earlier, like this control of the electricity, right? can we, I'm honestly haven't thought about it too much, so I'm going to ask myself the question, see if I can answer it right now, but like, can we control how deep our electromagnetic pulse goes into somebody else's brain? Can we control it? Can we also control how deep somebody else's magnetic pulse goes into our brain? I think yes. I think it's going to require us to, for me personally, I think I would have to visualize a neuron turning on a certain switch or pressing a certain button and causing like a protective wall, right? That like bounces the electricity. Instead of absorbing the electricity, it bounces it back to the other person. Now that I said that out loud, I'm sure we do bounce back electricity a lot. I think it's very, again, it's all instinctual. I think we just grew as animals, evolved as animals on this entire planet with all the other animals to know how to do this stuff. But the cool part about it, the fun part about it, is that we can, I guess, relearn it or like come back around to it and play with it in this day and age, you know? Basically what I'm saying is, like, when we were fish in the ocean, we were doing this. So I think we know how to do this, right? But it's just about like playing with it in a different body now, in an evolved human from fish. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm sure we could bounce the electricity back and like completely like reject it. I just don't know how that would look as an example in the physical world right now, but I think I did enough talking about it anyway. This was freaking fascinating for me to discuss. The whole time I was talking about it, I was observing this new formula play out, like in my head. I was observing myself be in this formula, like now that I'm aware that these neurons do the thing that they do, in my belief anyway, and then, et cetera, et cetera. And the final thing that I have to say is that I do feel that this electromagnetic pulsing that we do goes through screens. I think it goes through distance. I don't know about time. I don't know. That's a quantum thing we're talking about right now, but I do think it goes across distance. I think because electricity moves across distance, and whether it's, it rides on the freaking molecules in the air, whether it goes through the trees and it gets communicated through, I don't know how exactly it goes, but it does. It does bridge space and distance. So I think that's a definitely like different, like a deeper thing we're going to talk about, or I want to talk about at least. The best wording that I could give to describe that concept is collective energy. That's the only word I've ever heard out in the wild to describe what I'm kind of talking about, how for whatever reason that I would be curious to find out, we do have somewhat of a hive mind as humans, and I think that our brains are all connected innately. I mean, it would make sense because we all came from we're all related in some way, right? We all have the similar DNA in some way, so it would make sense that our brains would have a certain connective system that is as old as time itself and connects us. Maybe that's the way the electricity travels. I'm not sure. I have to do more research, so we're getting into like vague territory here, so I'm gonna cut it. But thank you for listening. If you did, if I sound like a conspiracy theorist, I honestly, just a little bit about me, I don't ever go on the internet. I don't. I literally sit and I observe my day-to-day life, my physical world. I do research sometimes for things that, like, might interest me, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I promise. And And I know that this message, well, I hope that it doesn't, but if it does, I hope that it helps you in any case and scenario. Like, if this message is triggering to somebody, if it causes fear in people, I hope that if you move through the fear that it causes you, and you find something that excites you in it, like you find something that's like worth exploring to you, right? I'm coming from my personal experience in all of this. I am not coming off as a scientist. Like, I did a research, and I know a Western scientist anyway that I did research, and I know what I'm talking about from there. I'm just me talking about and sharing my experience. And I love hearing about other people's experiences too. So if any of this like sounded like, okay, I can see where that would fit into my life, share that. I would love to know. But yeah, anyway, that's me. Peace.